Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for coming to Balance Muse and showing up at my channel. I have been wanting to touch on this subject for a while now. If you can tell by the thumbnail and the title, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. And I know this is a very polarizing subject for many people out there. I know that people have opinions on it. Some people aren't really familiar with it, but this kind of conversation needs to happen, in my belief, right now because of the changes that are going on in the world. So, unless you've been living under somewhere in a very safe community that is untouched by anything happening in the US, we are having a lot of changes, especially monetary changes that are happening right now, and it's looking kind of scary for many people, especially for any minority groups, marginalized groups, and women in the United States. So the transfer happening, I see just by paying attention to global politics and what's happening in the world stage, there's a monetary transfer that's happening. It's a wealth transfer that's happening. And even though we may be working as hard, and we still have the majority of the domestic labor, if we're at home and married and with children, women take on the brunt of the emotional work and the domestic work. We're just getting paid less all around. So it's very important for women to realize that the cards are stacked against them already in a world where there's a lot of disrupt. That's where the opportunity lies, even though it's scary. So I always do some back and forth with ChatGPT just to get my thoughts together, brainstorm together. I have all these ideas, but ChatGPT is remarkable in condensing my ideas, the words that I want to say, the thoughts that I have, into a manner that I can present them, and I can just concentrate on presenting them instead of getting lost in the weeds with all my thinking, because my thinking is it's going 10,000 miles an hour. So it's very helpful in that. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read the brainstorming that we did about Bitcoin. And the title of the brainstorm is Why Women Need to Buy Bitcoin Now More Than Ever. And the first thing that it says is the landscape has shifted. Women are being asked to give more while receiving less, whether it's in wages, safety, or financial stability. Now, I've already talked about that in my beginning of the video, but all ladies should know this. They've either experienced it or they know of it firsthand. Or if you are a man who loves the woman in their life, whoever that woman's sister, mother, daughter, what have you, you know that she might have complained about this already. And that's not changing, unfortunately. Okay, so the old plan no longer works. The safe paths we were told to follow, steady jobs, savings accounts, traditional investments, aren't protecting us the way we expected. This is absolutely true. I know that for a fact. I was taught to be very fiscally responsible, to give 10% away, and also to, as in tithe or charity or what have you, and then to save 10%, save it automatically without question every paycheck. I was taught that. What I did not know and what I was not taught was that the monetary system was based on debt, and that they have the power to print away all my hard-earned savings, all the work that I've done, that even if I were to receive or be blessed enough to receive any kind of promotion and a rise in my wages, it would not keep up with the cost of living, especially since the 2008 crash. The only way you would have been able to make it and at least get ahead was if you had some form of assets, that whether that be a home, whether that be stocks, real estate, what have you. If you didn't have those things, you were not beating inflation. You more than likely suffered. And the last thing that it said in this particular point was that it's not your fault. Change is happening fast, and it's okay to take time to process it. But while you grieve the old system, the loss of the old system, big players are making moves. We know this. Ladies, we know this. While they play war games, whether they're incompetent, whether they're good leaders, it doesn't matter. They're they can say that their biggest concern is the people, but I think we can all experience that it's not. It may be that they're trying to make sure that their families, particularly, are taken care of, while the families of the other people go off to war to fight wars for them. But we know good and well that they're making moves according to what they see fit, and we're just left to adjust accordingly. Okay, so that's some of the bad news. All right, but this is where we go into more positive things. The future belongs to those who adapt. Disruption equals opportunity. Every major financial shift has created winners and losers. The key is to be on the right side of change. Technologically speaking, we are in the most exponentially profitable time that we could ever have. Thank goodness we have the internet so that we're able to share information, easily find out what's going on in other parts of the world. We have now, before where we couldn't pick up and move locations, we can now do that. We can have jobs that are not in the place you were in. You can easily, or not necessarily easily, but you can more easily pick up and start a whole new life, a whole new business in another country than the country of your birth. That leads tremendous opportunity for those who are willing to take the risk. And now, even more so, we have wealth that we can transfer with us. We can take it with us in the form of cryptocurrencies. But specifically, I'm talking about Bitcoin. Cryptocurrency, that's a whole nother discussion for another day. I just want to talk about the granddaddy of them all, which has been a tremendous technological leap. Okay, the world is transitioning to digital assets, and Bitcoin is at the center of it. Women cannot afford to sit this out. I'll say it again. Women, ladies, please listen to me. We cannot afford to sit this one out. We may want to sit out as forms of protest, as far as you don't want to buy from a particular company because you don't agree with their policies. I understand that. I fully support you in your pursuit of that. However, Bitcoin is not a company. It is not run by any specific government. It is not run by any CEO that can change his sentiment and change the market on a whim with his sentiments and expressions. It's global. And it's one of those things where if you can see the value in that, you don't have to necessarily just protest and say, okay, we vote with our dollars, fine, but save your dollars on something that's going to hold a store of value. All right. So the name of the game is assets, buying assets. I didn't know this in school. We were not taught this in school. I think we had one little class on stock market buying, and it was very uninteresting. And we were still reading from the newspaper. That's, I'm aging myself a little bit, of what stock prices went up and when they went down. Thank goodness for the access to information. It was so boring. And I didn't pay attention. And it wasn't a very good, well-taught class. But now that we do have access to information of where big money is spending their money, as in what BlackRock is buying, what Grayscale is buying, what other countries are buying or producing. We have access to that information. We've not had that on this scale at this amount in any other time in history. So take advantage of that. Other countries are. So this is the name of the game. So the name of the game is to buy assets, not necessarily be an employer, but to buy assets and to own assets. Being an owner, just like in Monopoly, is what's going to bring you income, not necessarily working for an employer. I understand that as someone who's always been an employee, I've got to start to think in ways that are not like an employee. I understand that as someone who has always been pretty much an employee, I have had side businesses that I've done, but I was not taught to think like an entrepreneur, as somebody who owns assets. I'm teaching myself that now. I behoove anyone, ladies, start to think in those ways as best you can now, because those are the ones who actually are able to not only produce wealth, but also save their wealth over time. and pass it on to other generations. Okay, financial independence is about ownership. To thrive in an uncertain world, we need to own assets that hold value over time. Bitcoin is one of those tools. Why? Why is it a tool for this? It's outside of the system. No bank can freeze it. No government can inflate it away. We all know that's a problem. Inflation that they want to keep under control, it's a very slippery slope and it can get out of control very quickly. Bitcoin is also scarce. Unlike cash, which loses value with inflation, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. There's only 21 million Bitcoins that have been made. And just like gold, it's now referred to as a commodity. Bitcoin is now a commodity, is considered digital gold. There's only a certain amount. So at some point, whatever the price is now in dollars, at some point the price will rise higher if there is demand for it. And we have increasingly seen demand for this asset over time since its inception. When I first bought some Bitcoin and later sold it, unfortunately, in 2020, because craziness happened. Like, I certainly didn't know what this asset was going to do. I was just taking a very small calculated risk. And I can see now over time, especially with institutions getting in, like banks, like countries buying it or producing it for their own treasuries. I had no idea that this would be the case. But other experts who were in the industry way before I had even heard of it, they were saying this kind of thing, nation states would be buying this or putting it on their balance sheets. And let's see, it's global. You can take it anywhere, making it an ideal asset for women considering expatriation or financial sovereignty. Hopefully both. Right now I live in the United States. I have, which I hadn't thought seriously about before, I have seriously now started thinking about what other countries can I live in that would give me a higher quality of life than it would be in the United States. I'd never thought I'd be saying something like this, but we can all tell from now in history, what time we are in history, it's just not the same as it was when I was growing up. It just it's not the same. So in order to have a little bit more access to sovereignty in all things, freedom in all things, I have been considering which other countries would be more welcoming to me, would maybe be safer for me, which maybe give me better peace of mind, and that also would allow me to have financial sovereignty. One thing I don't want to do is jump from the frying pan into the fire. Okay, so that was that little section on that. But the last section pretty much is how to start. Even small moves matter. You don't have to hold a whole Bitcoin. You can just own a piece of a Bitcoin. I think the price right now is probably between 80 to 85,000, probably around 83,000. You don't have to hold a whole one on your own. If you do, that's wonderful for you. I really am happy for you that you've achieved that mark, that benchmark. That's amazing. I'm not at all at that place, but I don't want to waste time thinking about what I should have done or I could have done with the information I had if I had not sold my Bitcoin. I can't bemoan that. I just have to put one foot forward in front of the other, at least knowing what I know now and having learned the lessons going through the last two cycles that Bitcoin is not going anywhere. It's now more confirmed for me than ever than it was when I first started getting in. It's not going anywhere. BlackRock does not want to lose money. They want to own everything. My little piece of the pie is so small that it would take a whole lot more for them to lose money, and they don't want to lose money. So that me as a little small tiny fish in this big huge ocean of wealth being traded, I'll just take my nibbles when I can. I'm not selling. This is not financial advice. You do your own research, of course, but I've done enough to know that I feel very comfortable getting back in. Anyway, self-custody is key. Keep your Bitcoin in a private wallet, not on an exchange. I would recommend definitely, if you were to have some, have your own in a wallet, safely put away, accounted for. They're not coming after me for my little bit, But just to be safe, I can understand why, if you just don't want to lose your wallet, if you're afraid you'll lose your wallet, why people choose to buy an ETF to get some exposure of Bitcoin without having to worry about, something happens. They get knocked in the head and they can't remember their private keys. I can understand why they would want to make contingencies to have some, not necessarily on an exchange but you can if you want to, but also to have some through exposure through other stocks and ETFs that have exposure to Bitcoin. You're not going to get the same returns, but if the returns are 10x over what you have now safely in a Fidelity account, okay? The bottom line is women can either stay in a system that isn't built for them or start positioning themselves for financial freedom. Bitcoin isn't just an investment, it's an escape hatch. The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time, right now. And I wanted to end it on that. ChatGPT just summed it up perfectly. And if you wanted to talk to me more about it, I really like to know. If you are buying Bitcoin, please say so in the comment section. If you're buying any other cryptos, are you even familiar with it? Do you hate it? Let me know if you do and why, because I'd love to do some myths and myth busting about what cryptocurrencies are, what Bitcoin is in relation to cryptocurrencies, because they are not the same thing. And yeah, all right. So that was it. And you guys take care. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time.